Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking what is literally one of the most dramatic geopolitical thrillers in modern history, the year 1989. In just a matter of months, a massive wave of revolution swept right across Eastern Europe, completely dismantling a communist bloc that had stood seemingly rock solid for 4 decades. We're going to visualize exactly how this incredible domino effect played out, using the historical evidence to guide us through the whole thing. Okay, let's dive into this. The central mystery we're looking at here is a simple yet incredibly profound question. Why did a 40-year empire just collapse in a single year? And maybe more importantly, why didn't the Soviet Union send in the tanks to crush the uprisings? Exactly like they did in Hungary in '56 and Czechoslovakia in '68? Well, to understand this, we have to look at a fundamental, absolute game changer of a policy shift in Moscow. For decades, Eastern Europe was basically held together by force under the Brezhnev Doctrine. This was the explicit, hardline threat of military intervention to keep communist regimes in line. But when Mikhail Gorbachev came to power, he introduced a radical new approach. It's often playfully called the Sinatra Doctrine, meaning he was going to let the bloc states do things, you guessed it, their way. This massive shift away from the threat of force was the ultimate catalyst for the spectacular changes we're about to explore. Section 1, the limits of tolerance. Let's set the stage and look at how these nations began cautiously testing Gorbachev's new rules. So before 1989, Western analysts and Eastern European leaders alike firmly believed there were two unbreakable rules you simply could not cross without triggering a Soviet invasion. Rule 1, ending the dictatorship of the Communist Party. And Rule 2, withdrawing from the Warsaw Pact military alliance. These thresholds were deeply, deeply internalized across the bloc. Everyone remembered the brutal crackdowns of the past. Crossing these lines meant guaranteed retaliation. Or, well, at least that's what everyone thought. Now, what's really fascinating here is the sheer ambiguity of Gorbachev's stance. During a 1989 meeting with a Hungarian leader, Gorbachev explicitly stated the safekeeping of socialism is the aim of reform. He genuinely wanted democratization and economic reform for sure, but his ultimate goal was to revitalize socialism, not end it. The problem, or honestly the opportunity, was that absolutely nobody, not even Gorbachev himself, knew exactly where his limits of tolerance actually were. Section 2, testing the waters. Let's talk about the bold first movers, Poland and Hungary. And this brilliantly illustrates the incredible, undeniable grassroots pressure building up in Poland. Following severe economic decay and massive strikes, the Polish government realized they were just too weak to govern alone anymore. This led to an unprecedented, historic compromise. In early 1989, the regime actually sat down with Solidarity, this massive 10 million strong independent union they'd previously spent years trying to crush, for the famous roundtable talks. They legalized the union and agreed to partially free elections. The results of those June 1989 elections were absolutely staggering. Out of the 161 freely contested seats in the lower house of parliament, Solidarity won 160 of them. No way, right? It was a landslide that completely shattered the Communist Party's perceived legitimacy. The regime was humiliated. But here's the most crucial part. Moscow didn't step in to reverse the outcome. Watching Poland closely, reformers in Hungary decided to push the envelope even further. They made 3 incredibly bold moves. First, they legally reevaluated the 1956 Soviet crackdown as a legitimate popular uprising. Second, they drafted a brand new constitution omitting the Communist Party's leading role. And third, and most consequentially, they began dismantling the literal fence on their western border with Austria. This action physically tore a hole right through the Iron Curtain, creating an immediate escape route for thousands of East Germans. Section 3. The Berlin Wall falls. We've reached the massive tipping point of our story. Let's walk through these cascading events in East Germany because they really show how the illusion of Soviet control shattered entirely. First, that exodus through Hungary triggered a huge crisis. Then, massive peaceful Monday protests started swelling in Leipzig, with hundreds of thousands of people bravely demanding change. The East German regime was completely paralyzed, and Moscow ordered its troops to just stay in their barracks. Finally, under immense pressure, an East German official gave a famously muddled press conference on November 9th, mistakenly announcing that travel restrictions to the West were lifted, immediately. The result was November 9th, 1989, the ultimate reality check. Tens of thousands of East Berliners surged to the wall. The guards, lacking any clear orders and facing this massive, overwhelming crowd, simply opened the gates. The wall was breached. And the most important part of this whole shebang? the Soviet tanks stayed put. The very moment the world saw that Moscow would not use force to save its most crucial satellite state, all remaining respect for Soviet authoritarian power evaporated instantly.
Section 4. The dominoes collapse. Now that the threat of force is gone, we are shifting into high gear.
Let's move to and see how this builds on a timeline, because the density of these historical events is just staggering. Just look at this sequence. The wall falls on November 9th. The very next day, Bulgaria's dictator of 35 years is ousted by his own party. 1 week later, the uprising in Czechoslovakia begins, and by mid-December, Romania is in full revolt. Guys, what took a decade in Poland took mere weeks in the rest of Eastern Europe. It spread like wildfire. A prime example of this crazy accelerated timeline is Czechoslovakia's Velvet Revolution. Once the Czechoslovak regime knew Moscow wasn't going to back them up, they simply lost the will to repress the opposition. Massive, entirely peaceful protests, we're talking crowds swelling up to 750,000 people in Prague, were led by the newly formed Civic Forum and the dissident playwright Václav Havel. In just a matter of weeks, the communist leadership resigned and Havel was elected president. Section 5. The violent exception, the dark contrast to an otherwise peaceful year. Here we see a very stark contrast. In Poland, Hungary, and ultimately Czechoslovakia, we saw negotiated transitions. The elites realized the game was up and compromised with the opposition. But Romania? Romania was an anomaly. There we saw a true revolution from below. It was a bloody, chaotic popular insurrection against the deeply repressive, almost medieval dictatorship of Nicolae Ceausescu. Just look at the jarring reality of the Romanian Revolution. Citizens literally taking cover behind tanks in the streets of Bucharest. Unlike the peaceful, triumphant scenes in Prague or Berlin, this resulted in chaotic street fighting, rampant disinformation, and hundreds of tragic deaths. It culminated incredibly rapidly on Christmas Day with the swift trial and execution of the dictator and his wife. It's a really dark reminder of how deeply entrenched and ruthless that specific regime was. And get this. Here's an incredible historical irony to consider. During the height of all that bloody chaos in Romania, the U.S. Secretary of State James Baker went on television and implicitly stated that the United States would not object if the Soviet Union intervened militarily to restore order in Romania. Think about that for a second. The U.S. was basically inviting the Soviets to enforce stability. It was the ultimate, undeniable proof that the Cold War dynamic was truly officially over. Section 6. How did it happen? Let's summarize the historical analysis of these breathtaking events. So, historians constantly debate exactly what caused the collapse. Was it top-down, driven by Gorbachev's reforms? Or was it bottom-up, forced by civil society groups like Solidarity? Was it just inevitable because of decades of deep structural and economic decay? Or was it highly contingent on sheer historical accidents, like that muddled press conference that accidentally opened the Berlin Wall? The truth, as the sources reveal, is a fascinating, messy combination of all four. It's like a giant puzzle coming together all at once. So the crucial point is really captured perfectly in this one short quote. When a Bulgarian minister quietly asked Gorbachev if they could replace their hardline dictator, Gorbachev simply replied, "Это ваше дело." It's your business. That single sentence of non-intervention, coming straight from the leader of the Soviet Union, effectively unraveled a continent-spanning empire. I want to leave you all with a provocative question. If the ultimate threat of force is the only thing holding an empire together, what happens the moment you refuse to pull the trigger? The year 1989 answers that vividly. The moment the threat of violence vanished, the Iron Curtain fell, proving just how hollow the illusion of authoritarian control had really become. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I hope it gave you a powerful new framework for understanding this absolutely incredible chapter of history.